Alright, my little math friends, here we are on the final lesson for our data unit that we're doing. We're on lesson 11.3, the last one for 11. I'm going to show you guys how to do something. I don't think anyone's ever heard of it before. Maybe you have. We're going to use something called the mean absolute deviation. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what that is. The mean absolute deviation, math people call that MAD for short. Alright, what that is, the mean absolute deviation tells us how far apart data points are compared to the mean of the data set. Okay, so we find the mean of the data set, and then we want to find out how far apart our numbers are from that mean. Alright, I have some good news and some bad news for you. Which one would you like to hear first? Okay, well, seeing that I had no response, which can't say I'm not surprised since I'm doing a video and you can't respond, but let's just go with the good news first. So the good news, okay, for those of you that have not liked the writing we've been doing, the good news is there's going to be less words on this one. Okay, so that's a good thing. Here comes the bad news. For those of you that don't like to do so much math, there's going to be more calculations. And when I say more, I mean like a lot of them. Alright, but I have a little extra good news. They're going to be easy calculations to do. There's just a bunch of them. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Why do we even care about the mean absolute deviation? If we have a greater MAD, what that means is our data is farther apart. Okay, it's spread out further. If we have a lower MAD, then our data is closer together. Okay, it's not so far apart, it's closer together. Alright, the MAD can also tell you some other things, but I'll wait until you guys can wait till high school to see what that other stuff is and have fun with that. We're just going to kind of get into the basics of it for this lesson. So let's take a look at calculating this and how we're going to go about doing that. Here's our first example. The tables show the number of minutes per day students in a class spend exercising and playing video games. Now here's what I don't like about these some of these math books and everything is how complicated they make these questions. Okay, listen to this and then we're going to change it so it's not so weird. What is the difference of the means as a multiple of the mean absolute deviation? Okay, doesn't that just sound strange? Let's cross a bunch of this stuff out because we don't need it. We're going to keep what is, and we're going to cross out this and this all the way to of, so it's going to read like this. What is the mean absolute deviation? And we'll take off the S. What is the mean absolute deviation? Okay, that's what we're going to find out for each one of these. We got two data sets, and we're going to figure that out. Okay, I'm going to work with this data set first, the exercising one. We're going to go to step number 1, which is to calculate the mean. That is what we need first. Alright, so we add all these numbers up. We divide by how many there are. When we do that, they all add up to 204. There are 12 data points if you count these all up. So again, that gives me a mean of 17. Okay, this is the mean. We just did step number 1. Step number 2, subtract each data point from the mean and avoid negatives. Okay, we're going to avoid those negative numbers. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so here comes all the fun calculations I told you about. We're going to subtract each data point from the mean. So what I mean by that is we're going to subtract each one of these numbers we have here for data points from 17. Okay, doesn't that sound like fun? So let's start this process and see what we get. So we're going to start with the very first number. We're going to go 17 minus 0 is going to give me 17. Then I'm going to go with the 7. 17 minus 7 will give me 10. The next 7, 17 minus 7 gives me 10. Now I get to 18, which is bigger than 17. So instead of going 17 minus 18 and getting -1, we're going to avoid that. Just do a switcheroo on these numbers. Take 18 minus 17, and we'll end up with +1. Then we're going to move on to 20. 20 minus 17 will give me 3. Notice how I did the switcheroo on that one also. Alright, so we got to keep doing that. I'm going to pause the video so that I can get these all calculated out, because I'm sure you don't just want to watch me put all these numbers in. You guys can do the same thing, calculate it out. You don't have to write all these work steps down like I am. This is just for the lesson purposes. So I'll pause it, and we'll see what we get for numbers when we're done. Okay, there we go. I finally got that done. Here is all of our data points subtracted away from the mean, 17, and this is all the answers that we got. Okay, so we just did step number 2. Step number 3, we're going to calculate the mean of the answers. Okay, so we're going to calculate the mean of all these answers we got. So same thing, we're going to add up all these answers and divide by how many there are. If you add up all these numbers, these answers, you're going to get 108. And there are still 12 of them, so we're going to divide that by 12, and that gives us 9. Okay, that is what our mean absolute deviation is, our MAD. Now, what does that tell us? Why do we care about the 9? So the MAD equals, on average, each data point was 9 numbers away from the mean. Okay, that's what it tells us. It tells us how spread out our data was. Our mean was 17, right up here. On average, each one of these numbers was 9 numbers away from the mean. Okay, that's what it tells us. So let's go on to the next slide, and we will work with the video games, and we'll calculate that one next. Okay, so now we're going to work with this one right here. So we're going to go through our same steps. Step number 1, calculate the mean. Alright, so add up all these numbers, divide by how many there are. When you add them all up, you get 350. There are 12 data points. When you divide that out, you're going to get 29, and a decimal number, it's going to be 0.1, and then it keeps on going. So we're just going to, instead of working with decimals, let's just round it to 29. We'll keep it just like that. Okay, so here's our mean. Alright, now we're going to go on to the fun part. Step number 2, we're going to subtract each data point from the mean and avoid negatives. Okay, so don't forget to do your switcheroo to avoid the negatives. So let's go through here, and we'll take each one of these numbers and we're going to subtract them from 29. So we're going to start with 29 minus 13. Then we'll go with 29 minus 18. See what that equals. Then we're going to go with 29 minus 19. Alright, and I'm gonna get these answers here. I'm gonna keep working these out. I'll pause the video. You guys can do the same thing, and then we'll see what we come up with when we're finished here. Okay, I'm finished. I got them all subtracted. I got all my answers here. Notice how I did a couple switcheroos here to keep my numbers positive. Now, let's see, step number 3. Don't worry about that. That was an extra one that we were going to put in there. Let's go on to step number 4. Well, this is actually our new step number 3. We're saving some steps here, guys. All right. So step number 3, we're going to calculate the mean of the answers. Okay. Same thing we did on the last data set. So we would add up all these answers we got, divide them by 12, and if we do that, when we add up all these answers, add them all up, we're going to get 108. And there's still 12 of them, so we're going to divide by 12. We got 108 in the last one too, and it's the same thing in this one. And that's going to give us 9. So what does that tell us? Just like in the last data set, the 9 What this means is on average each data point was 9 numbers away from the mean. Okay, so both of these data sets in this case have the exact same mean absolute deviations. What that means is that the mean of each of these data sets, the numbers, all of these numbers were within 9 numbers each of the different means that we got for each one. So this one, see, let me go back, I had a mean of 17. Okay, so this one had a mean of 17. This one has a mean of 29, and all the numbers here were within 9 on average, 9 numbers away from 17. All the numbers down here in this data set were on average 9 numbers away from 29. So it tells us these data sets were very similar in their spread. Okay, that's what it tells us. Alright, I mean, they're very different numbers. We get very different data from the exercise into the video games, but the spread of them, the spread of these numbers compared to 17 and the spread of these numbers here compared to 29 are very much the same. Okay, so that's what that tells us. When you guys get to high school, you guys are going to be doing some other stuff with this and really diving into it more, but we're just trying to figure out what the different spreads of our data sets are, and these ones are both very similar. They're the exact same. Alright, don't forget to try this problem. You guys are going to work this out again and see what you think of the mean absolute deviations you get of that one. And then when you guys come to class, we'll work some more of these out for our final lesson in Chapter 11. Thanks for watching.